when it gets to that point when you are supposed to use a firearm or a live bullet, it has to be controlled. And this must come from a commander. And the commander will issue orders. For example, if you have 2 riflemen, he will identify the person that he will want to use. And this is at selected targets. It's not random. Probably you will look at a crowd and see that George is the ringleader. You will identify George, and then you will give an order and tell him at the knees. You even give where this person is supposed to aim. You tell him, you shoot this person at the knee. Just immobilize this person, don't kill.
Right.
Not just shooting where you know that this injury will be fatal. And this is exactly what we are seeing now. For example, that young girl was at the balcony. How did she get shot? Somebody must have aimed his firearm at that girl and pulled the trigger and killed the girl. And remember, when you're pulling the trigger, we have 2 pressures. There's the first pressure and then the second. So when you pull the first pressure, it gives you time to reason. Am I doing the right thing?
Right.
Or am I doing the wrong thing? So basically, what we're saying is that there's no situation whereby police are supposed to use firearm on protesters. And as I've said, if it comes to that point, then this has to be controlled and under command so that somebody can take responsibility.
Right.
Here we are seeing denial, denial, denial. But at the end of the day, if proper investigations are done, and it is discovered that actually firearms were used, we need to identify the persons that actually pulled the trigger, which firearm was used to shoot at the protesters, and who gave the orders.
Right. And of course, it's been a blame game, right, left, and center. Like you mentioned, everybody's denying and pointing fingers at the next person. How do you think this is reflecting on the confidence of the country on the police?
I think when somebody is dead, even if you try to blame Trump, the fellow is dead, and if he's shot, he's been shot. And the police should stop these killings. If not a single life should be lost from police bullets. We have trained them and equipped them. Even we have big, they call those big lorries, how do you call those big water cannons?
Water cannons, yes.
They are all meant to immobilize. And I think the protests that we have seen have not reached a level where you say it was necessary to kill people. So I think this one, some rogue policemen, some rogue ones, with anger in their hearts, just went to say, we want to kill a few people to make sure that they are fearful, they are scared. And then these people who are doing that should know that they're giving government a bad light. They are also risking, because Kenya has changed. They will be prosecuted. There will be investigations. If necessary, we'll take some of them to ICC. We have not reached where we say, now let us have our bullets flying left, right, and center. Let these people protest. I wish they knew how painful it is to lose elections. It's painful. You can commit suicide. So when you see some people jumping on the streets, understand their pain, give them love. So this I am also telling the police. I don't think even the president would support your actions. Stop it.
And you know, when you talk about rogue police officers, that is usually, you know, the excuse, if I could call it that, that many police officers, even the spokesperson would use. They would say it's only a few rogue police officers who are doing this. It's not the entire police service that should be vilified. But at the end of the day, you know, in Africa, and that African proverb that says that one spoiled tomato in the sack can spoil, you know, that one rotten tomato rather can spoil all the tomatoes. So we need to start interrogating. Is this a case of police officers who are assured of protection no matter what they do? Case in point, was it Kipchirchir, one of the police officers who had posted very disturbing things on Facebook about body bags being sent to Kisumu. Later on, after the election, he actually posted a picture, you know, a scene of a very bloodied scene, saying, I have single-handedly taken out this person, you know, in the area of Kisumu. He was taken to court yesterday. But the very nerve to post such things on social media, does it point to a rot somewhere in the system that they know they will be protected no matter what? I mean, let me come to you, Kagwiria, in terms of, have you gotten enough support from security officers when you report these incidences that you have?
One of the things I would maybe like to say is that we are a government institution, and we undertake a constitutional mandate. And in doing this, we are not alone. We work closely with other organizations like IPOA, the Independent Police Oversight Authority. And once we do our work, and when we finalize our reports, and we escalate our reports to the office of the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, so that more thorough investigations can be done, and they are the ones with the mandate to prosecute, the constitutional mandate to prosecute, because we don't have that mandate. The other thing is that at least with IPOA, with whom we work closely, they also have the mandate to investigate every report about excesses of policing, and we'll also be able to follow that one up, whether administratively within their mandate, or also recommending that charges could be preferred against individual officers or individual commanders. Having said that, I want maybe to say that some of the protesters do carry crude weapons.
Right.
And really need to be stopped. And we have urged Kenyans that the only kind of picketing and demonstration that is allowed under our constitution is peaceful, peaceful demonstration. And when you're armed to the teeth with stones or rungus or whatever crude weapons that you have, that does not then fall within what strictly we can call peaceful demonstrations. Right. The other thing we have noted is that it does not matter whether you're a security officer or just an ordinary citizen. Destruction of property, whether private or public, is just unlawful and wrong. And charges could be preferred against anybody who destroys another person's property, including their housing, their business, their wares, etc. We are also calling for us as Kenyans now to go back to our normal lives. And as you have heard some people saying, I think since yesterday, although the former Prime Minister Raila called today as almost as a public holiday. Today is not a public holiday; it's a working day. I want to say that the elections are now over, and everybody, most people at least in this country, want to put that behind us. And whatever differences and disputes that arise from the just concluded elections, I think can now be handled either by arbiters or the courts and other legal channels, and without prolonging the uncertainty that comes with just ongoing contestations, and also confrontations with security officers. This generally is our message, and also to assure Kenyans that as long as you call us and you let us know that your rights have been infringed, we will make every effort to follow up on your report and establish that your rights are being protected.
All right, and whether you had something to add to that.
What I want to comment is about the rogue policemen.
Right.
When you have 100,000 people, chances that you'll get a few rogue are there. If you read the Bible, God who created the human being, Genesis 6, he himself regretted creating the human being. His heart was grieved and he wanted to destroy human. He was pained. So you will find some people who are beyond, both within the police force and within the rioters. Some people, you see them with pangas.
Right.
Some people, you see them with big rungus and crude weapons. Some throw rocks. Some can kill. Some have killed policemen. So there's a level where you become a human being. You cut me with a panga and I hold a gun. Don't expect me to be choosing your leg or your hand. I'll go for your heart straight because it is a matter of life and death. So it is upon even those who are demonstrating to exercise restraint and to know that we are all human beings. We can get angry, and when we get angry, it can be dangerous for you. The policemen are holding guns. Those guns are loaded. And they are human beings, they get annoyed. So be careful. The police officers also understand that these people are angry. They are annoyed. They don't know, especially when their commander has told them there was rigging. So they have no way of verifying, even if these were lies. It is upon both sides to restrain, but let us know that live bullet should be the last option. However angry you may be, however taunted you may be. But the people also, please, if you are going out to picket in a way that you are a picketer, then we understand. Then there are also thieves, crooks. They are the ones going late at night. I've never seen riots at night. I don't know whether you have seen riots at night in this country. They are always during the day, then they go away. But the thieves continue late at night, robbing people. Now, these thieves, I can assure you, this is a capitalist society. They will be dealt with in a more severe manner. And that severe manner is not praying with you.
All right. George, let's hear your thoughts on this. I mean, are there a few rogue police officers, or does this point to a rot or a gap somewhere in the system that police officers can commit atrocities and they know they're somewhat protected?
I think, Michelle, there's a breakdown in command. I don't buy this theory of rogue police officers, because somebody somewhere must take responsibility for this. And as Weda said, when you are being clobbered in Kisumu, I think I was among that group. That time I was serving. And we were actually under control of somebody. And if anything went wrong, there's somebody who was supposed to take responsibility. I remember very well when, during the multi-party politics, when Kenyans were agitating for multi-party system, during Sabasaba, there were riots all over, but nobody was shot dead. We knew how to deal with this. The crowds were there, out on the streets, but we managed to control the situation. I remember we went to Thika Makongeni Estate, where we met so many rioters out of the estate. People were throwing stones at us. We were, in fact, one of our commanders gave us an order to shoot and kill, but we told him, no, that is not the right thing. We disobeyed that command because we knew this was an unlawful command. So it boils down to the training of the police that we are having now. Are we training our people properly on how to deal with the riots, or are we just arming them and sending them out there to deal with a mob, yet they don't have the skills on how to handle this? I think it boils down to that. If you look at the kind of training that police are receiving nowadays, I don't think it's enough. And this is why you'll find that instead, let me go back a little bit. Let's look at the composition of a riot squad. A riot squad is supposed to, a platoon of a riot squad is supposed to compose of 32 police officers. And out of these 32, 21 are supposed to be armed with batons, not guns. Only 2 out of the 32 are supposed to be armed with guns, with live bullets. The other 2 that are armed with what we used to call gas guns. So this situation now is getting out of hand, because every time I've gone out, yesterday I was in Ruaraka, and all the policemen that I saw were armed with AK-47s.
Right.
How do you go out to deal with the rioters armed with an AK-47? You're not going out to deal with Al-Shabaab, as opposed to being armed with batons and shields to protect themselves from stone throwers, because most of these people that are out there on the streets are using crude weapons, they're using stones, and there's a way of dealing with this. So I don't think there's any justifiable reason why police should be armed with firearms when they're going to deal with protesters.
Right.
I think this is where we are getting it wrong.
And before we get to what action can be taken, maybe just to come back to you, Kagwiria, because the use of live ammunition isn't the only thing in question here. In some areas, especially in Kisumu, in Kondele area, there have been many reports of security forces breaking into people's homes, dragging them out, torturing them, and in some instances, killing them. Now, many of these things are going around on social media, and it's not very possible to verify. Has the Kenya National Human Rights Commission received any of such reports?
Thank you very much. Yes, we have received reports that security officers have been breaking down doors and torturing or beating up, roughing up people, including residents, asking for where their meals are, etc. Now, this is something which we are still following up in terms of taking the testimonies of witnesses who have experienced this kind of stuff. But we were, in the first instance, concerned with the fatalities. So that is what we have followed up in the last 2 days, and we will continue today. We were in Mathare, Kibera, and different places in Kisumu, I think also Migori and Siaya. Deployed different teams in these areas, and we are collating all the information that we are getting from our teams on the ground, and we'll be able to have now a composite report in terms of what actually took place. We have to be very careful for us as a commission, because we don't want to act on social media reports. But our hotline, which we have been giving to people, has been ringing off the hook, and including last night. So there are a number of things which reports we got even throughout the last night, and we will continue to follow up this morning and the rest of today. What I think some Kenyans may not quite imagine how terrifying it is to know that people are in your neighborhood and they are knocking down doors, and it is so terrifying to know that even in the sanctity of your own home, you do not feel secure.
Right.
And it is something that we cannot wish even for our enemies. So I think that those kind of reports are terrible, and we will have to establish exactly what was happening. Some people in Mathare 4A who called us last night were saying that it looks as if the people who were visiting their homes were not actually police officers, but were thugs who may have donned a uniform that looked like police officers. And that is even more worrying. We did escalate this information to the police themselves so that they can follow up. And I just hope that through the night, these citizens were protected.
All right. Yes. But of course, even as the country tries to move on, from this entire election experience, those who've been victims of these allegations of police brutality will want to seek redress. George, in terms of accountability, what is the procedure, for establishing whether live ammunition was used, whether excessive force was used, and which police officer carried out these atrocities?
What needs to happen is that they need to file a report to the police. And under the National Police Service, we have the Office of the Director of Internal Affairs. He is mandated to investigate police excesses and carry out administrative action. And there is also the Independent Police Oversight Authority. Constitutionally, they are also mandated to investigate police excesses. And in this case, because there is accountability, we know who was deployed where and how he was armed. Remember, we had this case of Koril, who shot 2 people in Kisumu. He was taken to court and he was acquitted for lack of evidence. Yet we had clips.
Footage on national television.
Yeah, even in the national television, internationally, all these were aired out. But how this person was got out of the hook, we don't know. So we have processes, we have procedures within the police service, and investigations are supposed to be carried out. Where a live ammunition has been used, somebody needs to account for it and who gave the order. Because as I've said, the books are very clear that use of live ammunition must come from a commander. And this commander has to be at the rank of inspector of police and above. So if we find out investigations are carried out and it's discovered that somebody used live ammunition, then the commander in charge of that particular riot squad is supposed to take personal responsibility, including the individual police officers.
Right.
And I think this is what we expect to see happening. Right now, we are seeing denial from the police saying that no live ammunition were used. I've seen pictures of spent cartridges. These spent cartridges are not for blank rounds. These are actually fired from live rounds. We can be able to identify that. So we just don't need to live in denial. Let somebody take responsibility. Let us have conclusive investigations. And whoever is found to have used live rounds without instructions or without orders, then he should take personal responsibility for this.
Right, and conclusive and speedy investigations, because we know the nature of investigations in Kenya can take quite a while. As it is on the daily this morning, there's an article that some police officers have been asked to submit their guns for investigations surrounding the same claims. But let's now focus on the reason why all of this is happening, why there's protests and why police may be using excessive force. Of course, that is the disputed presidential election results. Yesterday, Raila Odinga spoke in Kibera, of course, saying that he will be having a major announcement tomorrow on the way forward, asking their people to stay, not to boycott work today. Let's talk about the conduct of NASA leaders, since the results were announced, with regard to what influence their conduct would have on their supporters.
Yeah, this is a case of billionaires asking thousandaires to not to go out to look for daily bread. It's very, very unfortunate. I really don't think we have a disputed elections. There is no dispute except there are winners and there are losers, which is the election. Some will win, some will lose. And then when you lose, the law has set out processes that you take, or you can choose to go a different way. I think NASA leaders have chosen a way that is calculated to disrupt order. Now, when order is disrupted, the whole country is affected, the whole of it. All of us, their supporters, other people's supporters, we all pay the price. Now, that kind of action is not contemplated in law and does not mean well for the country. And it is dangerous. Why do I say so? Honorable Raila Odinga has 6.7 million people who supported him. That is a very, very big voice. And such a big voice is like you are holding a nuclear weapon. You have to use it very carefully. The courts have only to be used as and when is necessary. He seems to be using it randomly. Any minute he goes to Kibera or Madare, he wants to use it, which can easily bring this country to fire. When they have the 7 days after this Friday to file a petition for the court to scrutinize whatever went wrong. And if the court is satisfied, then he will nullify the elections. If the court is not satisfied, then he will fight, he will live to fight another election. But you cannot find a perfect election, but we need a perfect country where all of us can survive. But I tend to think these are the dangers of a presidential system. Winner takes it all, loser takes it all. Loser gets nothing. You have 6.7 million supporters who think that they will be in the cold for another 5 years. So they are suicidal. They say, we'd rather burn the whole house. But I thank God that the president himself said, my brothers, let us reason together. This is our country. And I pray that the president and the deputy president will have a broad-based government that includes all these people so that we have one country that is prosperous. But for now, I would appeal to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga that use the constitutional means. Do not put the country to be such anxious. It hurts. And eventually it isolates the Luo nation. Right. Now it is like the Luo nation fighting with the police fighting them, when the rest of Kenyans are going on. We are praying, we are on our knees. We are praying that Honorable Raila Odinga should put down the fly whisk and then take the Holy Bible and continue, and we pray for this country so that we are all united. That fly whisk is funny.
All right, and of course, from that speech yesterday, he did ask his supporters to attend a rally tomorrow. He will have a major announcement. But we've also had, the NASA principal sort of allude that we may need you to take to the streets. We may need you for mass action. And like I mentioned, the right to protest is a right for every Kenyan. But Kagwira, from a human rights standpoint, what would be the recipe for a peaceful demonstration? Many times in Kenya, that is very elusive.
Thank you very much. As we said, Kenyans do have the right to picket, the right to demonstrate. Article 37 and 38 of our Constitution provide and guarantee this particular right. It's not an absolute right because the wording of the Constitution is that this right is only available to those who do it peacefully, which means that there should be no destruction of property. Sometimes when the groups are are demonstrating, they tend to get a bit riotous, rough up motorists or their cars, maybe overturn some kiosks on the way, etc., etc. That tends to now border on or cross over to the illegal action, and it becomes a bit of anybody who does that, then that's not a peaceful demonstration, and as envisaged in the Constitution.
Right.
Even so, when people are dissatisfied with something, at least our law does give that that space for the right for them to express themselves in a demonstration and such. But as my brother Weda has said, I think a lot of the angst that we are experiencing right now as a nation is happening because there's a lot of dissatisfaction among supporters of Honorable Raila, and they are a substantial number. But at the end of the day, I think after every election, every country has a duty to bridge the dichotomies that exist within the country or the communities, because especially very hotly contested elections, you'll find that while one side wins it all, as he says, there is another whole segment of the population that feels that they have lost it all. And this, for us, is a repeated scenario. And our survival, even as a nation, I feel depends on how quickly we can lose the election fever and just get on with the ordinary living. And we are also a country that's ruled by law, and the rule of law must prevail, because unless we can be able to bring our contentions and our disputes before qualified arbiters or the judiciary and fight some battles in court for purposes of scrutinizing whatever it is that is dissatisfying to Honorable Raila, for instance, as a candidate in the presidential election, then what seems to be the promise is a disruption to ordinary life, and that can have a very big impact in terms of our general economy and our general well-being as a country.
All right, just hold that thought. It is now about 4 minutes to the top of the hour. At this point, we'd like to release those watching us on KTN Home. Life and Style is coming up next. But for those who want to keep up with this conversation, do cross over to KTN News, where the conversation continues on KIVUMBI 2017. All right, so let's continue with this conversation. Let me come to you, George Musamali, because this back and forth as to how the security forces would be used in this election began even before the election itself, with several claims and allegations from the opposition. After the election, and like Aguirre says, that one wins all, one loses all mentality. Those who are in these areas where police brutality has been reported do not feel that they're part of this nation, and it seems to be cementing that division that this government is not for us. How do you think then the country and the security forces can come back to restoring that confidence without really politicizing and dividing the country in half with the security forces involved?
I quite agree that the kind of politics that we play in this country are divisive. And we call it a zero-sum game, whereby winner gets its all and the loser gets nothing. And I think this is what is bringing this divide. And when we're looking at the security forces, we should also agree that they're also Kenyans, and they have their own political affiliations. And when you go out there, it all depends on where you feel you belong. And this is why you'll find that some of these excesses that are being witnessed out there, if you carry out proper investigations, I don't want to mention some things, but if you carry out proper investigations, you will find that we are seeing some kind of politics in this. We need to have a national police service that is peopled with all Kenyans, and when they go out there, they're supposed to go out there and serve all Kenyans. And when we are talking about the kind of scenarios that we are witnessing, I think that it's lack of proper command. It's lack of proper command because the loyalty of the police is supposed to be to the people of Kenya, right, not to individuals. And I remember when I was in service those days, we were used to be, our training was geared towards equipping us to deal with all kinds of scenarios. And we were pledging our loyalty to the Republic of Kenya. And I think this is where now we need to ask ourselves very serious questions. What kind of policemen do we have? Are they people that are there to serve personal interests, or are these people that have been trained and equipped to serve the Kenyan people? Because I don't see why somebody should go and break into somebody's house, pull him out of the house, and then torture him. That is not supposed to be the case. Because when policemen are trained, you're told that when you're going out to deal with protesters, your responsibility is to disperse them. And the moment people are dispersed and they're in their houses, yours now is to provide security and deal with only people that are out here to break the law. So I think what I've witnessed in Kibra, for example, when you watch the clips that were being played by Kenyan in Kibra, we are having a mob that was charging towards the police. And the moment the police were charging towards them, throwing tear gas, these people will withdraw. I think this is how things are supposed to be handled, not firing at a crowd that is already on the run. It's not supposed to be like that.
Right.
And I think we should remember we had this policeman, Nvenge, how he dealt with the situation in Mathare in 2007. Right. He talked to the people, and the people listened to him, and they actually dispersed peacefully. Yeah? There was no destruction of property, there was nothing, there was no shooting, there was no killing. Why can't we emulate such officers? We need such officers in the service. Right. Right now, we are not seeing any kind of officer that is coming out and talking to the people. We are just using excessive force on the people, and I think this is not the right thing to do as a country. Remember, as Weda said, people are grieving, and there are several ways people can express their anger. And one of them is actually destruction of property. It's not happening in Kenya alone. We're even seeing it in America. There was a disputed election in America. People were not happy, and people were out on the streets. But we did not see the kind of force we are witnessing in Kenya. All right. I think something in the police command is just wrong, and we just need to work on it, because this is not going to be the end of peaceful protests or some protests in this country. And protests at some point turn violent, and there are ways of dealing with it legally. All right.
Weda, even as we wind up, before the election, these claims came out from the opposition, military and security forces are likely to be used in this election. Supporters of the opposition now saying what they said, seemingly is coming true. Do you think, first of all, there was any truth to that? And secondly, how do you think as a country we can, stay devoid of politicizing instruments like security instruments?
Thank you. I think the opposition predicted that the military will be used. You can see that that was a lie. That was meant just to scare people, fear-mongering, and to win them votes. But I think Kenyans went beyond. I say, and I get insulted on Facebook when I say that propaganda, lies, and dancing will no longer guarantee anybody votes. Truth, people want, and development. The military are not there, okay? The same people did not know. Either they knew they would lose, or they were planning for it. But the situation now is about an outcome, and then statements made by the opposition that are bringing out people from their houses into riots, and then the police are reacting. So the lie that it was arranged, security forces will be used to do that, that's a lie that should be buried. Okay? That was the first question. The second question is how it plays out as we move to the future. I think Kenyan democracy is maturing. You have seen the outcome of this election. People are slowly stopping their voting according to their tribes. People seem to insist on development. And I think Jubilee escaped it just because they were able to show development agenda. They are able to go to Kisii and say, we have done this. They were able to go to Western Kenya and say, they have done this. They are able to come to Kisumu and say, we have done this. Going forward, and towards the end of elections, you saw people struggling, who is going to bring free secondary education? When? NASA saying by 1st of September, Jubilee saying 1st of January next year. In other words, we have now graduated to issues, actual issues that affect the people of Kenya. So going forward, we are maturing. And as we mature, we pay the price. Unfortunately, that price includes lives. But we are praying that the leaders will mature. And I think when some people leave the scene, it will be less volatile. And it will be more refined. And people will be elected on their abilities. And that would be good for the country. But going forward as a lawyer, I think we will have to re-examine two things. One, electing the president on the same day alongside others, we may have to change that so that the president is elected on a totally different day. That is one. Two, we may have to find a way so that a winner does not take all. I can see the bitterness in Kalonzo, I can see the bitterness in Mudavadi, I can see the bitterness in Honorable Raila Odinga, and the fact that for 5 years they were out. Another 5 years they're going to be out. And then somebody will come and say, we're eating nyama, and you are just staring. You know this bitterness. So as a country, we need to look at where we say, with this kind of support, how do we accommodate you? And now the appeal to President Uhuru, please consider these people. Consider Mudavadi, consider Honorable Raila Odinga, consider the Honorable Kalonzo, and some of them, so that we have one country which is strong, which is growing.
All right, that's why we wind it up today on Kivumbi 2017. That is lawyer Ambrose Oweda, alongside Kagwira Mbogori, who is the chairperson of the Kenyan National Human Rights Commission, as well as a security expert, George Musamali. A conversation on the allegations and claims of excessive use of force by police in the country. This is a Kivumbi 2017. Let's take a short commercial break, but do stay with us. On the other side, we have more stories making headlines.